Studio 33 AD, bringing you Catholic media.
It has been said that there are essentially three big reasons, three big barriers for people who have been exposed to the Catholic faith to not become Catholic themselves. The first is ignorance. They simply don't know what the faith teaches. They may never have been exposed to it except for in passing, right? Just some kind of cultural reference. Or perhaps they didn't have any time to take it in depth, right? The consequences of what it means or what it is to be Catholic. The second reason is misunderstanding. Through the culture, through people who don't understand themselves, they've come to believe that the basic tropes that you'll hear, especially in our culture, some of the big ones that you hear a lot, the lie that we worship Mary or the saints, they hear that and they think, I don't want to do that, so I'm not going to be Catholic. Or they think the church hates people with same-sex attraction, which is not true. Or they think that certain sins are unforgivable. They've been told that maybe by someone else that they know. Or another big one I've heard is that Catholics have to work their way into heaven by their own merits, apart from grace or apart from help. And then finally, there's a big third category. And are you ready for this third category? This third category is bad Catholics. That is one of the big ones. There is ignorance, there is people who misunderstand, and then there are people who are exposed to the Catholic faith through bad Catholics. People see what Catholic people do and they say, no thank you, I want no part of that based on what I'm seeing. And it's actually kind of a negative affirmation of what the truth that Jesus gave to us today. This is how all will know that you are my disciples. He gives us the clue. This is how people are going to know if you're for real, if you actually believe in Jesus. If you have love for one another. That's it. That's how people will know that this is for real, that this faith is for real. Jesus was not kidding around, right? He was serious. People, I've noticed, actually make some of the most important religious decisions of their life based on the behavior of the people that they know personally. I'll repeat that. People make the biggest religious decisions of their life based on the religious practice of the people they know personally. Is that a good idea? I don't know. It's hard to say. On the one hand, it doesn't actually make a whole lot of sense to interpret an entire faith tradition based on who one happens to know, right? That's actually not a good sample size. But, on the other hand, isn't it a little bit reasonable to see if believing something actually makes a difference in someone's life? That's what they're looking for. Does this actually change this person? That they say that they're this rather than that. If you believe that someone rose from the dead, wouldn't you act a little bit differently than someone who didn't believe that? If you believe that there was only one place, namely a Catholic church, that you could receive the living body and blood of a resurrected God-man, wouldn't you want to go there? If there's only one place you could do that, wouldn't that affect your behavior? But the fact is, this is well documented in human history, well documented. No one needs to pull out the archives because it's just so obvious. We act badly as Catholics, don't we? It's not only ourselves that we hurt when we do this. It's not only ourselves. We hurt other people by the negative witness that we give. It's everyone watching us that we hurt. If our friends see that we're angry people, that we're spiteful people, that we're unforgiving people, what reason would they have to do what we're doing? Why would they want to be a part of that? If we work ourselves to death on our day of rest, Sundays, and we're greedy, and we put money before family and people, then why exactly should people think that we're any different or that it matters at all? If our marriage, or the way we treat marriage, the way we treat sexual immorality is the same as the secular culture at large, why shouldn't you just be part of the secular culture at large? If it's the same thing, Why bother with changing to become a Catholic? Why think that Jesus Christ makes any impact on someone's life? So whether we want to or not, we have to be different. We have to be different. As it currently stands, we are often not. And I include myself in this, right? This is not condemning of you guys, I'm including myself. And part of this is human weakness, right? It's certainly understandable. We're all human, we all have our flaws, we all have things we're just not good at, and that we just can't get to. God can work with us in those places, right? We're weak, God knows that. But, that aside, what about the part that's not human weakness? What about that part? What if we truly lived out Jesus' new commandment? Love one another. As I have loved you, so you also should love one another. Very simple to say, very hard to do. Can you imagine if we lived this commandment out well, very well, what the world would look like? What our congregation would look like? What our universal church would look like? Let's just do a thought experiment with all of this. If we just live this out extremely well in maybe a couple areas. I want you to imagine a Catholic church where instead of, well, we'll talk about the United States of America. In the United States, people attend Mass, so 25% of Catholics attend weekly Mass. 1/4, right? Can you imagine if 100% of Catholics attended weekly Mass to show their love for God and for their neighbor, which is all we're doing here, right? Loving God, loving our neighbor. Can you imagine how packed this place would be? How many Mass times we would need? How many priests we would need? It would be amazing. We'd probably have to have 7 or 8 Masses at this parish alone if we collected everyone who claimed to be Catholic every Sunday. Can you imagine the love of God that would be flowing to people's hearts if it were like that? And then likewise, the love of God that would be flowing out of these hearts into the hearts that are not here, that would flow into our neighbors' hearts. Can you imagine that? It's a wild thought experiment. Or how about this? Can you imagine a Catholic church where people genuinely loved their neighbors who were present next to them in Mass? Like, what would it look like, concretely? Introducing yourself to someone who's sitting by themselves. Hi, who are you? I haven't met you before. Are you new? Can you imagine that? If that was like normal practice, it wasn't weird at all, right? But if it was normal practice to like, yep, I volunteer, I serve the underprivileged, right? I help some way like that. Being active in a ministry, things like that. And not doing it because someone's forcing a person to do it, but because they genuinely want to love their neighbor, right? To follow this commandment. And if everyone were doing that, that would be amazing. Can you imagine a Catholic church where people did not align themselves more with their political party than they did with the teachings of Christ? Right? That love, rather than political power, were the number one operative force in a person's life. Can you imagine how much more united our country and world would be if this were the case? If we didn't choose a false dichotomy in Catholic social teaching in order to honor Christ and his apostles and what they taught. One more. Can you imagine a Catholic church where the priests could be what Christ was asking of them, genuinely? Where they actually gave their life in sacrifice for the flock? Can you imagine priests who every time, celebrated the sacraments with truth, with love, not changing them to fit their own preferences, but rather giving the full gospel to their people, would lay down their lives for their people? Where the priests were actively striving to overcome their own shortcomings rather than just being content with them and striving for virtue. I know that I certainly have a long way to go on that one. So honestly, think about this. If we could pull even one of these things off, even just one, it would have a radical effect on the church and on the world for the better. This is what it concretely looks like to love one another. It was only in one of Jesus' most sacrificial moments, that is when Judas betrayed him, that he could say something like this: "Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him." And it will be the same for us. Only in sacrificial love will people see that the Catholic Church is worth joining and transforms its members into living icons of the incarnate God. It's a tall order, I understand that, but that's what grace is for. That's what it enables us to do. And so does the fountain of grace, the Eucharist, which we'll receive in just a short time.